The radio cracked at 2:17 a.m. Unit 1, you copy? I pressed the button without thinking. Unit 1, I copy. Static rolled thick and wet, then the voice returned, closer this time. You're already on scene. I stared at the desk in front of me. Coffee cooling, paperwork untouched. The Pike Hollow Substation was silent, except for the hum of the lights overhead. Dispatch, I said. Repeat last. The radio hissed, then went quiet. Out here in rural Ohio, silence has weight. It presses in. I checked the clock again, 2:17. I wrote it down in the log anyway. 0217. Radio anomaly. No call sign. The Pike Hollow Substation was barely a station. One holding cell, one desk, one cruiser in the lot. The county shut down the old downtown station 15 years ago after a fire and moved everything to centralized dispatch in Marietta. The old building still sat at the edge of town, boarded and bricked shut. Everyone avoided it. The radio popped again. Unit 1, the voice said. Different now. Rougher. Movement near Black Run. Black Run cut behind the old station before disappearing into the hills. It wasn't on any active patrol map. I leaned closer to the radio, not transmitting. What kind of movement? Static surged. Faint voices bled through beneath it, phones ringing, people talking. A busy room that shouldn't exist. Foot traffic, the voice replied. 4 subjects coming up from the creek. Coming up from it. I felt a chill slide down my spine. I opened the night procedures binder, flipping past outdated checklists. A loose sheet fell out, folded and yellowed. No header, just typewritten text. If you are working alone at Pike Hollow Substation, read this. My pulse thudded in my ears. Do not respond to radio traffic without a case number. Do not confirm your location after midnight. Do not go to the old station. If a voice uses your full name, do not answer. The radio clicked. Officer Grady, my full name. Confirm you are responding. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Outside, something shifted beneath the lot's sodium light. A shape stepped into view, too still, too deliberate. The light flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw a badge catch the glow on its chest. The radio spoke again, softer now. You're already here. The figure outside lifted its hand and pointed, not at the door but past me, toward the back of the building, toward the maintenance corridor, toward the service hatch no one ever used. That's when it hit me. Dispatch wasn't wrong. I was on scene. I just didn't know what the scene was yet. I kept my hand off the radio. The rules page lay flat on the desk like a warning label, and I couldn't stop rereading the same line. If a voice uses your full name, do not answer. Outside, the figure under the sodium light didn't wave again. It just stood there, chin slightly raised, as if it was listening to something I couldn't hear. I backed away from the window and forced myself to move, slow and quiet, toward the back corridor. Every step felt wrong, like I was walking deeper into a decision I wouldn't get to undo. The corridor smelled like old mop water and metal. The evidence room door was shut. The generator closet vibrated faintly, steady as a heartbeat. At the far end, half hidden behind stacked folding chairs, was the service hatch. I'd seen it 100 times and never really looked at it. A square of steel set into the floor with a recessed handle. No label, no bolts, just a seam around the edges, thin as a paper cut. I crouched. The air down there was warmer than it should have been. The radio on my shoulder crackled, barely a whisper. Confirm arrival. I didn't answer. I hooked 2 fingers into the hatch handle and lifted. It came up easier than expected. No squeal, no resistance, like it had been opened recently. A breath of warm air rolled out, carrying a faint smell of smoke and damp paper. Not fresh smoke, old smoke. The kind that lives inside walls long after the fire is out. A narrow ladder disappeared into darkness. I aimed my flashlight down. The beam caught rungs, then vanished, swallowed by a black that didn't reflect light the way it should. My throat tightened. Under the silence, there was a low vibration so deep I felt it in my teeth, like a generator running somewhere below, but not mechanical, more like a distant tone holding steady. I stood and looked back down the corridor. The front of the station was still, but the quiet had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It felt occupied. I made myself walk back to the desk. The radio was silent now, but the computer screen glowed brighter than I remembered. The CAD system shouldn't have been doing much at this hour. No pending calls, no notes. Except there was a new window open. Incident log, Pike Hollow Station. Not substation. Station. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. A list populated instantly. Timestamps, case numbers, unit identifiers, clean, typed entries like they'd been entered by dispatch. Only the dates were wrong. They were tonight's date, and the first entry was already there. 0217. Unit 1 advised. Already on scene. My blood went cold. More entries followed beneath it, as if the system was updating live. 0221. 4 subjects observed near Black Run. 0224. Unit 1 initiated contact. 0226. Unit 1 requested backup. I hadn't initiated anything. I hadn't requested backup. I leaned closer, reading hard, like I could force the words to change. The next line appeared while I watched, letter by letter. 0229. Unit 1 en route to Old Station. The cursor blinked at the end, like a pulse. I turned in my chair and looked toward the back corridor. The open hatch waited in the dark, quietly breathing warm air into the building. Outside, the sodium lamp flickered again. I didn't go back to the window, but I heard something, soft, careful footsteps on gravel. Not running, not hurried, approaching. The radio clicked one more time. Not the rough voice, not the calm one. A third voice, familiar enough to hurt. "Grady," it said, like my partner was leaning over my shoulder in the cruiser again. "Don't make me come up there." My hands went numb. Wes Harlan had been dead for 3 years. On the screen, a final entry typed itself in, slow and confident. 0231. Unit 1 confirmed arrival. And from the back corridor, deep under the hatch, the vibrations swelled, eager, answering, as if something below had just heard me speak. I never said a word, but the log didn't care. The cursor blinked once, then the system refreshed, and the next line appeared like it had been waiting. 0232. Unit 1 entered lower level. My stomach turned. I pushed back from the desk hard enough that the chair legs scraped loud against the tile. The sound felt wrong, too sharp, like it echoed when it shouldn't have. The footsteps outside stopped. Then came a knock. Not on the front door. From beneath my feet. A dull, hollow clang rolled up through the floor, followed by another, slow, patient, like someone knocking on the underside of a coffin. I backed toward the corridor, every instinct screaming at me to leave the building, but the air had thickened, pressing in on my chest. The lights flickered, dimmed, then steadied, just enough to keep me from running blind. The hatch was still open. The ladder waited. The vibration below had changed. It wasn't steady anymore. It pulsed, rising and falling in a rhythm that made my heartbeat stutter, like something down there was sinking to me. My radio crackled again, and this time I didn't reach for it. I didn't have to. "Unit 1, Wes's voice said right behind my ear. "You're late." I spun. The corridor was empty, but the smell of old smoke was stronger now, layered with something coppery and warm. Another knock came from below, louder, insistent. The incident log chimed softly. 0234. Dispatch proceed Unit 1 to proceed. Except to the answer. I set my flashlight down again. This time the beam didn't vanish. It caught walls, brick walls, blackened and blistered by fire. A hallway stretched out below, longer than the footprint of the substation had any right to allow. A red light glowed at the far end. An exit sign. The same one that used to hang above the old station's dispatch room door. My knees weakened. I remembered stories, things the older deputies said after a few beers, how the fire hadn't spread right, how it burned hot in one place and barely touched others, how they swore they could hear phones ringing from inside weeks after the power was cut. The ladder creaked under my weight as I descended. The air grew warmer with each rung. The vibration resolved into sound, low voices overlapping, radio chatter bleeding into itself, the hum of equipment that shouldn't have power. At the bottom, my boots touched concrete dusted with ash. The hallway was real, solid, lit by flickering fluorescent panels that buzzed like insects. Doors lined the walls, interview room, evidence, dispatch. I knew the layout. I'd trained here. The dispatch room door was open. Inside, rows of desks faced a wall of dark monitors. Some screens flickered to life as I stepped closer, each one showing a different camera angle. Roads, cornfields, the substation. Me. On the central screen, I saw myself standing at the bottom of the ladder, flashlight shaking in my hand. Behind that version of me, something moved in the hallway. Tall, wrongly thin, wearing the suggestion of a uniform. A voice filled the room, not from the radio, but from everywhere at once. "Shift's not over," it said, calm, official, hungry. "We don't leave posts unattended." I turned, heart hammering. The hallway behind me was no longer empty. Figures stood there, half lit, half formed. Badges melted into their chests, faces familiar in pieces. An eye I recognized, a mouth that smiled the wrong way. Dead deputies, dispatchers, maybe others who'd answered when they shouldn't have. They watched me with patient expectation. On the screen, the incident log updated one final time. 0239. Unit 1 assumed dispatch. The chair at the central desk slid back on its own. The vibration stopped. The station went quiet. And above us, somewhere far away, a radio crackled as a new voice came over the line. "Any unit in Pike Hollow? Please respond." I sat down before I realized I was moving. The headset settled over my ears, warm and familiar. The monitor in front of me lit up, waiting. After a moment, I pressed the button. "This is Pike Hollow Dispatch," I said, my voice steady and calm. "Go ahead." Time stopped behaving the way it used to. I don't know how long I sat there before I realized it. Minutes stretched thin, then folded back on themselves. The clocks on the wall behind the dispatch desk all read different times. None of them moved. The headset pressed gently against my ears, warm, almost comfortable. Too comfortable. Calls came in. Not all at once, never chaotic. One at a time, spaced just far enough apart that I couldn't tell if the silence between them was seconds or hours. "Pike Hollow Dispatch," I heard myself say again and again. "Go ahead." The voices on the other end were wrong in subtle ways. A woman reporting headlights behind her on a road that hadn't existed since the creek washed it out. A man whispering about footsteps circling his barn, even though I could see on the monitor that the barn had collapsed years ago. Each time I tried to warn them, my words bent. "Help is on the way," I said, even when I knew it wasn't true. Every call generated a log entry, typed automatically, perfectly formatted. My name sat neatly in the dispatcher field. I glanced at the other desks. They weren't empty. Figures sat there, half lit by their screens. Some wore old uniforms. Some wore headsets fused into the sides of their heads like growths. A few glanced at me now and then, expressions neutral, professional. No one spoke unless spoken to. A monitor near the ceiling flickered, switching to a live feed of the Pike Hollow Substation. I saw the building from outside. Quiet. Dark. My cruiser still sat in the lot, engine off, frost creeping across the windshield. Someone approached it from the tree line. The deputy. Young, nervous. I recognized him. Evan Miller. Fresh transfer. Covering my shift because I'd taken sick leave. He stopped under the sodium lamp and looked up at the building, uneasy. My throat tightened. On my screen, a new call populated. "Incoming, Unit 3. I didn't want to answer. My finger moved anyway. "Pike Hollow Dispatch," I said. "Go ahead, Unit 3. Evan's voice came through, thin with static. "Dispatch, this place feels wrong. Radio's acting up. Can you confirm last transmission?" I saw myself on the monitor, my body still seated, unmoving somewhere above him. Empty. The rules page flashed in my mind. Don't confirm location. Don't answer full names. Don't let them know. I tried to say, "Leave. Get out of the county." What came out was calm and official. "Unit 3, I said. "You're already on scene." He went quiet. Behind him, in the camera feed, something shifted near the edge of the lot. A shape peeling itself away from shadow. My console chimed. 0246, Unit 3, acknowledged. I felt something settle into place inside me, heavy and final, like a door locking. Evan's voice came back, shaky. "Dispatch, I think I see..." The line cut. Around me, the other dispatchers stirred slightly. Not excited, not alarmed. Satisfied. A new chair scraped softly across the floor at the far desk, pulling itself out. Waiting. The system worked because it always had. Someone manned the desk. Someone answered the calls. Someone made sure the town's quiet problems stayed contained. I understood now. Pike Hollow didn't lose its station in the fire, it buried it. And every so often, when the county ran thin and the night stretched too long, the station reached up and filled the vacancy. The headset hummed gently. Another call came in. I straightened in my chair, voice steady, eyes forward. "Pike Hollow Dispatch," I said. "What's your emergency?" The next call didn't come through the headset. It came through the room. A phone on the far wall rang, an old rotary-style desk phone, the kind the county auctioned off years ago. The sound cut straight through the hum of the monitors, bright and impossible. No one else moved. The figures at the other desks sat perfectly still, eyes on their screens, hands folded like mannequins waiting to be posed. The phone rang again. On my monitor, the Pike Hollow Substation feed flickered. The camera angle shifted, closer to the front doors now. Evan Miller stood in the cold light, breathing hard. His flashlight beam shook across the glass as he tried the handle. Locked. He stepped back, scanned the lot, and for a second his gaze lifted, right to the camera. Right to me. My mouth went dry. The phone rang a third time. Something in my chest tightened, like a leash being drawn short. I stood up. The chair didn't scrape, it simply eased back, silent, as if the room wanted me to move smoothly. The rotary phone waited on a dusty metal table beneath a bulletin board pinned with old notices. Community Safety Day, School Crossing Detail. The dates were from the year of the fire. I stared at it, willing it to stop. It rang again. I picked up the receiver. Warmth pressed against my ear like a living palm. A voice breathed in, slow, familiar. Grady? Wes. Not over the radio this time, not through static. Here, in person, he said softly, like he was standing right behind me. You see it now, don't you? My hand tightened on the receiver until my knuckles ached. Where are you? A chuckle, almost his, almost right. Then something wet under it, like a throat that didn't work the way it used to. I'm where you're headed, he said. Same place we all end up if we answer. On the monitor, Evan yanked on the door again, then stepped away and keyed his shoulder mic. I couldn't hear what he said, but his lips formed one word clearly. Dispatch. My incident log updated with a soft chime. 0253. Unit 3 requested dispatch confirmation. Wes's voice turned gentle, coaxing. You remember your first night here? How quiet it was? How you thought quiet meant safe? I swallowed hard. The receiver vibrated faintly, like the dial tone carried that same low, tooth-deep hum. What do you want? I asked. The answer came from everywhere. The phone, the monitors, the walls. We want the post staffed, Wes said. We want the system closed. My eyes drifted to the dispatch desk. A sheet of paper had appeared there, fresh, white, no ash, no stains. A printed schedule. Pike Hollow, night operations. Dispatcher. Officer Grady relief. Dispatcher. Unit 3, Miller, shift change, 0300. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. On the monitor, Evan's flashlight beam swept toward the back of the substation, toward the corridor, toward the hatch I'd left open above. He'd found it. Of course he had. Wes's voice softened, almost kind. You can make it easier on him. I turned slowly, scanning the dispatch room. The figures at the desks weren't watching the screens anymore. They were watching me, waiting to see if I'd do my job. The headset on my desk pulsed faintly like a breathing thing. On the live feed, Evan stepped into the corridor and looked down at the open hatch. Warm air fogged around him in the cold building. He hesitated, one hand on the wall for balance. His lips moved again, silent but clear. No way. My throat tightened with something like relief. Then his radio crackled, audible through the monitor speaker this time, and I heard my own voice, calm and official, coming from the substation speaker. Unit 3, it said. Confirm you are responding. Evan froze. The log chimed. 0257, Unit 3 acknowledged. Dispatch. Evan's face went slack for half a second, like something had tugged a string inside him. His hand rose toward his mic without his permission. No, I said louder into the rotary phone. He doesn't have to. He can leave. Wes sighed. So could you have. On the monitor, Evan's mouth opened. I watched his throat work. His thumb hovered over transmit. And then, thank God, whatever still listened, he did something I didn't expect. He tore the radio off his shoulder and hurled it down the hatch. It clattered off the ladder rungs, vanishing into the dark. The dispatch room went still. The figures around me stiffened, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in a single breath. On my screen, the incident log stuttered, characters appearing, disappearing, trying to correct themselves. 0258, Unit 3 confirm. 0258. Unit 3 unc. 0258. Unit 3. Evan backed away from the hatch, breathing hard, eyes wide. He turned and ran, straight for the front door. Outside the substation, the lot lamp flickered violently. Something stepped out of the tree line, tall, thin, wearing the suggestion of a uniform. Its movements were smooth, deliberate, like it was gliding more than walking. It cut Evan off from the cruiser. Evan stopped, trapped between the building and the dark. In the dispatch room, Wes's voice sharpened for the first time. Fix it. The rotary phone burned hot against my ear. The room leaned in. I looked at the dispatch console, at the glowing button that controlled county-wide tones and alerts, the thing that could light up every radio in Pike Hollow at once. My hands shook as I reached for it. If I hit it, I'd do their job. But if I didn't? On the monitor, Evan lifted his hands, palms out, backing away from the thing by the trees. It tilted its head, studying him like a clerk deciding whether he had the right paperwork. I made my choice. I pressed the transmit key, not on the headset, on the main console, and spoke into the room like I was speaking into the county itself. "This is Officer Grady," I said, voice cracking. "All units, disregard Pike Hollow dispatch. Do not respond. Leave the county. Do not—" A piercing tone erupted in my ears. The console screamed feedback. The monitors flashed white. The figures in the room snapped their heads toward me in unison. Wes's voice dropped into something ancient and furious. "You don't get to close the system from inside it." The lights died. For a moment, the only glow came from the monitor showing Evan outside. The sodium lamp held steady, casting hard shadows. Evan turned, not toward the cruiser, not toward the road, but toward the town line, into the fields, sprinting through frozen grass like a man running for daylight. The thin figure lunged after him, fast now, impossibly fast. The feed cut out mid-motion. The dispatch room exhaled, satisfied. Then the monitors rebooted. New date, new entries. Clean slate. The headset slid across the desk toward me like it was being offered. Wes's voice returned, calm again, professional. "Good try," he said. "Now, answer the next one." The radio crackled, a woman's voice trembling. "Hello? Is this the police? I'm on Route 26 and there's someone standing in the road and—" My finger pressed the button before I could stop it. "This is Pike Hollow Dispatch," I heard myself say, steady and warm. "Go ahead." On the incident log, a new line typed itself in. 0300, shift change, complete. And somewhere above, in a small substation that had gone quiet again, a young deputy without a radio banged on a locked door and screamed for someone who would never answer. Not because nobody heard him, but because the station had already decided who was on duty. If you're driving through rural Ohio late at night and your radio crackles to life, make sure you know who you're answering, because some stations don't close. They just wait for someone new to sit down. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video. It helps more than you think. Subscribe to Campfire Horror Stories if you want more true-style horror from places people still live. still work, and still disappear from. And leave a comment telling me what you would have done when the radio called your name. Just remember, if dispatch tells you you're already on scene, it might already be too late. Good night.